Welcome to Peace of Mind for Pet Parents, the podcast by BrightHaven Caregiver Academy. I'm Gail Pope.
And I'm Karen Wylie. And together we're here to support you in navigating life with your aging or ill pets. We know how deeply you care for your beloved companions, and we're here to offer guidance, understanding, and resources for this meaningful journey.
Each episode, we'll explore topics that address the daily challenges, emotional realities, and choices you face as a pet parent, helping you and your pets find peace, comfort, and joy. Whether it's making sense of a new diagnosis, adjusting to changing needs, or simply seeking a place to feel understood, you're not alone. Thank you for being here with us.
Hello, and welcome back to Peace of Mind for Pet Parents. I'm Karen, here today, as always, with Gail Pope. Today we're going to begin with a statistic that I guess truly made us pause. Is certainly surprising to me. I'm going to read it so we have the basics that we all can rely on as we think about this. A large analysis of approximately 800,000 home-based end-of-life veterinary appointments across the United States found that about 44% of dogs and 59% of cats had not seen a veterinarian in the year prior to their death. So that's a pretty extraordinary size of a data set, both in size and scope. We'll include a link in the show notes so you can look at the published summary of the study if you'd like to explore it further. But Gail, for our conversation today, what's your first reaction when you hear those numbers?
I'd like to open it up even more because the first thing that comes to me to ask you is, was there any breakdown of elderly animal, young animal? That, I think, brain is processing various parts of this and thinking about myself as well. That comes to mind.
I'm in total agreement with you. This is the difference between research that is able to confirm certain things if they have large numbers, where they can confirm these percentages because they had 800,000 pets and information about them to go on, but it doesn't allow us to understand the why behind it all, the whys, the hows, the whos. It was not provided in the summary. So that's why I think it's a really good springboard for us to be thinking about what perhaps gets in the way of people bringing their pets to a veterinarian before they're contacting an end-of-life veterinarian. The implication is here that it's for euthanasia. So let's talk about what is going on for these pet parents who are making choices. What are some of the reasons you think that we might be dealing with these kind of numbers?
I think there are many reasons. You think of homeless people that live in poverty, people that struggle really to keep the family going. It's tough times for many people at the moment, and adding on the expense, which is ever going upward to go to a vet, I think that's part of it.
Let me just pause you there because you do more consultations than I do, but I often ask for information, to come forward. We do have our intake form on BCA, but if there's other information that clients want to forward, I'm happy to look at it. Some of the invoices from the in-home euthanasias, I'm seeing $700 and $800.
Oh, yeah.
Which surprised me. I haven't had one of those done. Of course, I'm very rural and pretty far away from a central area, so it's probably not even possible for me. But I just wanted to underscore, what you're saying. Certainly, if someone was homeless, that is completely out of sight and unavailable. When you're concerned about putting food on the table for yourself and your family, it also is out of sight.
I think the conversation also takes us to a parallel with humans and their decisions about their own physical selves and whether they go for a checkup once a year, whether they go every 5 years, whether they go once a month because they're worried about a new symptom. We all choose a different path in the way we treat our own bodies. And obviously, that flows over to the way we treat our animals. I would think that most people, when greeted with a symptom that isn't a nice symptom, that continues for a period of time to make you worry, I would think that a huge percentage of people actually would go to the vet. I could put myself into that category. I very rarely ever go to a vet because I speak to my vet on the telephone. All my animals have always had homeopathic care. However, when something comes up that is a symptom that is important to be able to know more about, then I would go straight to a doctor. So I think the holistic approach works really well in this kind of situation. Generally, it's certainly less expensive to work
Right.
holistically than it is conventionally. And to go to an emergency clinic, wow, that's even scarier, isn't it?
Yeah, with all the costs doubled or tripled, that's something to be afraid of right away.
So
Uh,
again, it brings in two more things. One would be insurance, and the other one would be going to the vet when you really see the continuance of a symptom that isn't improving. If you think, oh, he ate so, or his diet may be the problem, you change things up a bit, but you still see this symptom, whatever it is. That's a place where the tough should be getting going, one way or another way. I think for this survey that was done, the figures, I don't know, it's hard for me to even judge, but it does leave out a huge chunk of the population who may be working holistically and not be registered at a conventional clinic. So I think that would change the numbers quite a lot. But again, it all comes down to me to what do we want for ourselves? What do we plan for ourselves? And do we follow that same path with our animals? I know I do.
I would think fear of what you might learn if you do take your pet to a vet could be a factor here,
Oh,
where
yeah.
you feel like there's something serious, and let's say they're 12 years old and they're a senior and you're seeing something change, that you could be afraid of what the diagnosis will be, maybe not having enough money. That certainly comes into play. Once, if they did take the pet there and spent the money for the diagnosis, then there's all the emotional, the shock of what to do. And sometimes maybe people don't want to know.
That also makes total sense because it's not that they don't want to know, but if it's a symptom of something that needs a surgery or something, how in the heck are they going to find the money for that? So I don't know. We're all different. Some people just don't stop to think. Others spend a lot of money on insurance. Others cross their fingers and pray everything will be all right. So I think bias comes into it a lot.
Okay, bias about what? Say a little more, please.
Again, I'm just going back to where I began because judging other people by their decisions, we shouldn't be doing that. We should be judging ourselves for our own decisions and creating our own way forward and then honoring what other people choose to do or not do. That's the way I've learned to live my life because that really is what animals choose to do. Some are fine at the vet. They laugh and lick everybody or they purr and oh, this is so exciting. I love being here. Others, you can't drag the dog in the door. He's like, no, I'm not in there,
Yeah,
honoring how they are. And if you have an animal that is so fear reactive that
right.
it becomes a crisis, then
Mhm.
again, you're faced with this decision making. Is this an important reason that I really should? Is there a way I could do things differently? What can I do here to get some expert help?
You struck a chord when you're talking about a fear reactive dog, as
I know that came to me as I was talking.
you're looking at my face, and usually on Monday mornings, what have I been doing? Taking my baby. He's not at end of life, but he's needed pretty consistent treatment for the
Exactly.
partial crucial tear, but still brings in the behavior stuff. And that does become a factor of when you're going to go, how you're going to go, if you're going to go. I think that's a really important point.
It does. It's difficult. It really is.
Well,
Again,
the former academic in me from my early years, decades ago, I see a data set of 800,000, and that looks so juicy to me. It's like there's got to be trends in there. There's got to be information about the caregiver and what they need, what they're not getting. When I see that, I'm immediately thinking about this. Is there anything we can think of to do for them or do differently? And it actually prompted me again to be looking at what pet parents know or don't know about hospice care. The most recent study I was able to find was surveying, let's see, I'll read it again so I'm not just freewheeling here. It's a recent study of how often small animal veterinary practices even mention hospice or palliative care publicly, like on their websites. Out of more than 2,200 veterinary practices reviewed, only 2.4% explicitly mentioned hospice or palliative care as a service. So when we think about those numbers, and then the numbers of animals that are not seeing a veterinarian in the final year of life, I think I would be expanding the fear factor because they could be jumping to assuming, oh my God, euthanasia is going to be on the table and that's going to be the only option offered to me, when in fact hospice and other comfort care strategies could also be part of all this. If they're not hearing about it as an option, they're not going to consider it. Of course, we've talked about this so often that even in our human hospice statistics, we're not seeing a real embrace of hospice and getting their loved ones into hospice care early enough so that it could really benefit them.
I think the money factor comes into that part of the conversation too, because again, that or fear. People are thinking, talking about hospice care. I really don't know much about it. I bet it
Right.
costs a lot of money. If I'm going from this, it's like going to see a specialist. I
Yes.
know this, but now I'm going to go somewhere else. They know how expensive it is to step up and go to
Right.
see a specialist. So they start to panic again.
Yeah.
A lot of it does come down to money for people who can afford or do have the proper kind of insurance. Then it would be interesting to do a survey with the people who could go or can go to the vet in those kind of situations. That would be interesting because I think money must play a huge part in many of them. But then if
I
you
would,
take that out of the equation, then you get a little more down to the nitty gritty of, is it fear? What is it? What keeps you
yeah,
away?
yeah, exactly. Fear of what? As
And then
we,
also, it would take the fear sector and put that in its place. That probably remains in all of it. But then it
right.
would also identify how many people actually choose a holistic path with a holistic doctor, maybe work online, and it costs a lot less. I think the kind of survey that you'd like to see would be like, ooh, humongous.
Truth be told, my favorite kind of research is inductive research, which is where you're trying to map out a problem and you ask a lot of open-ended questions, knowing that the answers you're going to get, you're going to have to figure out. You're going to have to look for trends in your data. Are there patterns in what people say when they respond to you? It's messy, but it's, to me, the most fruitful kind of research to do.
Yeah, it must be
And that's where
fascinating.
it's the research you did in making all the observations you did about your animals at BrightHaven. It's how you were able to begin mapping out and describing the process of natural death because you were making notes about what you observed. You weren't saying, okay, here's my question. How many of them do this, that, or the other thing? You were just dealing with what was
Was.
and learning from that. That's inductive reasoning. That's inductive research. You were doing it. And that's to me is the most fascinating kind of research to do. But when there is a data set of this size, some of the results you have to say, wow. It's not like it was a research sample of 40 people when you're trying to say what the patterns are. For those percentages out of 800,000 appointments, that's a lot. That's a
And
lot.
they didn't subdivide in there at all.
The only thing I saw was the percentages about the cats versus the dogs, which is interesting. I'll ask you that too. Why do you think that 44% of dogs and 59% of cats had not seen a veterinarian in the year prior to their death? Why are there more cats not brought to a vet than dogs?
Yes, to me it makes sense. Those statistics seem right because there are a lot of feral communities out there now. Very often rescues come in and they do generally see a veterinarian if it's necessary. But again, a lot of small rescues can't necessarily afford huge veterinary costs all the time. So maybe that makes its mark too. But I think the feral communities would change that somehow as some of them become more socialized and come in.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think what else might affect that statistic. A lot of
Well,
people are nervous about taking a cat to the vet.
yeah, and really, if you think about how we live day to day with our cats, and I'm going to say cats that are in the house, not outdoor cats, but living with our cats and dogs in a household day to day, I think we take our dogs out for more things, and our dogs are more exposed to other things in life. Whereas our cats, if they're an indoor cat, they're on the couch, they're on the bed, they're not as exposed to as many things. So I think when you do begin to think about, okay, we got to go to the vet, then it's okay. Got to make sure they're not up in the window where I can't get them when it's half hour before the appointment. And I got to do this and I got to, there are little obstacles to getting your hands on your cat depending on how they spend their day.
Especially if they've been to a vet once before,
Oh,
really badly. And then you're like,
pull out the carrier. They're all going to be like that. Oh, God. The only time that was never the case for me is decades ago. I've talked about when I bred purebred cats and showed them. They thought hotels and judges and people wanting to interact with them, that was fun. They embraced travel and everything else. But any of my cats that weren't in that category, boy, they see the crate being taken out to take them to the vet and they're on it. There's different obstacles for pet owners to think about just taking their cat to a vet. Maybe that's some of the reason they were asking for the in-home veterinary services because they knew they couldn't.
of course, yes, yes, that's true. That's true.
As I said earlier, I was just surprised by having that size of a data set to begin to understand those statistics. Like you're saying, that makes sense to you that there would be more cats that had not seen a vet in the
Yes.
prior year as compared to the dogs. Oh, this is one of the things I was wondering about. Do you think it's because cats are better at hiding their symptoms than dogs?
Wow. Not in my experience. Wow, this is a blast from the past. Just thinking about animals who have been ill, surprised us. I don't know. I think when you know your animal really well, and particularly maybe for me, because of having a lot of animals, I would see if somebody was walking on three legs instead of four, just with a paw held up even just a teeny bit, I would notice that. If an ear was hanging down,
Yeah,
like they got something
right.
wrong, I'd notice that. So whether it be a cat or a dog, I think it would be about equal. What do you think?
I think it's possible, and I'm going to align with you on this, when you have more cats or more dogs where you have to look across two or three or four of them, just as you're saying, you're likely to notice something that looks off or
Yeah.
feels off. Whereas if you just have the one, I think, I want to say fooled into this because you just accept it. It's just the way they are. That's just what they do. That's just how they like to do things. You can accept things differently, whereas if you had a comparison with another cat or another dog, suddenly it's not just them. It's, oh, but this other one is not behaving in that same way. I wonder.
I'm just thinking if you've only got, say, one animal, as I have at the moment with Ollie, I think you notice, or I do, probably more than I really want to. know, the other day I took him out for a walk and there was some fresh new grass growing in a garden down the road and he was like, "Oh my gosh, this is just what I wanted." So he wolfed a little grass and we continued and he was fine. And then about an hour or so later, he threw up all over my
Well,
car. So I cleared it up, laughed and cried all at the same time. And one side of my brain was thinking, oh my God, I wonder if he's got something wrong with his stomach. Oh my goodness, the grasp. Oh, so, the practitioner side of me started thinking about, oh my God, I've got to watch him carefully. Whereas the other side of me is like, he just had some grass and it cleared. I think we do notice all sorts, and that's probably a bigger thing. If an eye is a little off, yeah, I think you
right.
notice it. If an ear is down, you'll notice it, start watching. Maybe if the appetite was a little up and a little down, a little up, again, you'd notice it. You'd be monitoring it. Strange that he didn't want to eat all his dinner, but oh, he ate tonight. So again, you would be monitoring it, even if you're not really consciously aware or writing it all down. Part of your
Right.
brain is registering it, I think.
That's a good point because if it is the only pet you have, you are going to be noticing those things. Whereas in a larger group, you tune yourself to notice who's still at the plate or who's still at the back. You're just noticing it's not necessarily as much of a crisis as if it's the one.
They're
That's
staying in bed longer than normal, or just have that when we've got a headache, or we just feel, oh, we look different. You'd say to me, what's wrong? I find the same with animals. You may see nothing at all as a symptom other than just a general, I'm staying in bed a bit later today and I just don't feel good. There's no specific symptom for a vet.
right.
So your brain has to keep watching.
I think part of our conversation that really resonates the most is the issue of fear. And it's fear motivated by lots of different things.
Oh God, yeah, it's huge. We could probably talk for another half an hour about the types.
I expect we could. But of course, for me and for us and what we do, I think I can't help but wonder if more pet parents were aware of comfort-based care or hospice as an option, if taking their pet to the vet in their last year of life would still be something that they're avoiding. It just seems to me that if there was more knowledge about hospice as an option, as a service that more clinics offer, it seems to me that would at least take some of the fear down. It would take away some of the assumptions that if they bring their pet to the vet and there's something wrong, euthanasia is going to be what's recommended. It's like there's this automatic linking it together. The older your pet gets and going to the vet becomes, is this going to be it?
Exactly, especially if they're getting older and you're given the option of basically of a surgical procedure, or I'm not sure what else. So
Right.
euthanasia is not necessarily spoken, but it's obviously there in the back of your mind, isn't it? Is he
Right.
too old to have surgery? Should I take the risk? Should I not take the risk? That's tough conversation.
With a lot of variables to think about. If you're listening or watching this episode and recognizing yourself in this conversation in any way, whether you went to the vet often or not at all, we hope this episode reminds you that caregiving can be relatively simple, because the statistics that we're quoting today don't capture the devotion, the tenderness, the quiet ways we show love to the pets in our home with our family. So what matters most is not how many visits happened to the vet, but how much care and presence and intention was there. For me, these statistics just reinforce why we are here and why we do what we do,
They do.
which is to continue to provide information about all those in-betweens, different paths that you can take with your pet to help yourself and your family and your pets all live as long as possible, live well together. We thank you for being with us as always. Bye-bye now.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Peace of Mind for Pet Parents. We hope today's episode has offered you support and insight as you care for your aging or ill pets.
Remember, it's not just about the end, it's about living well at every stage of life. To continue your journey with us, explore more resources at BrightHaven Caregiver Academy's website, brightpathforpets.com, where you'll find guides, assessments, and a caring community of pet parents like you.
Until next time, may you and your pets find comfort, connection, and peace in every moment. Take care.